Hey gang, it's Sean from the Commander's Brew. You know us. We're that show where we do offbeat decks and a lot of hilarious chats. Anyway, we're about to do a deck tech on Belbe, Corrupted Observer. Take a look.
All right, Belbe, Corrupted Observer. That's the deck this week. Let's start talking about it. I want to see what's in here.
Sure. So first let's read Belbe for everybody. Belbe is black-green legendary zombie elf 2/2. At the beginning of each player's post-combat main phase, that's the second main, that player adds colorless for each of your opponents who lost life this turn. So Belbe helps everybody, inspires attacking, but inspires them to not attack you. Because attacking you, the controller of Belbe, they don't get the extra mana. Extra mana is very, very appealing. Commander players love free mana. But we love it the most. And we've brewed up a deck where we've figured out 1 mana or like maybe 0 mana because they activate other ways of having every player lose 1 life or every opponent lose 1 life. So we can get 6 extra mana on our second main phase. 6 colorless mana, why that's perfect for 6 mana artifacts. So this deck is Belbe's cheating artifacts. That's what we're brewing around. That's the theme of it. So let's set the scene. Andy, why don't you do these first 2, which are 1 mana ways to trigger that 6 bonus mana after Belbe's on the board.
All right, first up is Vicious Rumors. Single black for a sorcery that says Vicious Rumors deals 1 damage to each opponent. Each opponent discards a card, then puts the top card of their library into their graveyard, and you gain a life. Cool, nice 1 mana single-use card. I love it. And next is Maggot Carrier. Single black for a creature, zombie. It's a 1/1. When Maggot Carrier comes into play, each player loses 1 life. Simple.
Yeah, that's 1 mana, and we'll get 6 back in our second main just for doing that.
That's incredible.
So there's a limited number of 1 mana ways to do this. So we do have a few 2 mana ways, and some are repeatable, some are not. But one that is repeatable is Vampire Neonate. Comes down for 1 black mana and is a 0/3 vampire. We play this on 1. We play Belbe on 2 for a green and a black. And then the following turn, we have 2, perhaps 3 mana available to us. Vampire Neonate says 2 and tap. Each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. There you go. Belbe's going to pay us back with 6. Or maybe we have to resort to something like Smallpox. That's another 1-shot for 2 mana. So it's black, sorcery. Each player loses a life, discards a card, sacrifices a creature, then sacrifices a land.
Yikes.
We've got like Maggot Carrier, Vampire Neonate. We've got a lot of little dorky do a damage and then you're useless to us. I'm happy to sacrifice Maggot Carrier. And I don't mind losing a land because I'm getting 6 back right now and I'll get more later. So I think I'm fine with that. Smallpox is pretty good.
There are some extra fun ways to do this, of course, as well in this deck, and these are like the kind of like you said, extra fun ways. Despite your ways of doing it, Deathrite Shaman is a great way to do this. I mean, if you've played any Magic in the last 10 years, you probably know this card. It's a single Golgari hybrid for a 1/2 Elf Shaman. It taps to exile target land from a graveyard, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. You can also pay black and tap it to exile target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard. Each opponent loses 2 life. And then green, tap, exile target creature card from a graveyard. You gain 2 life. So obviously we're going to be targeting the instant and sorcery cards from any graveyard, including our own. And each opponent losing the 2 life. But also Deathrite Shaman can just act as kind of a mana dork for when you don't have it out. So like Deathrite Shaman, just a good card in general. And really, really gets like put into overdrive in a Belbe deck. No question.
Yeah.
Also, we have Loyal Subordinate. 2 and a black for a 3/1. I remember this is from the Commander. It's from the Commander set.
Yes.
It has Menace, and it has Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, each opponent loses 3 life.
Yeah.
That adds up. Like, just
that adds
forget
up.
about Belbe. That actually, that's not nothing.
Well, and you've hinted at sort of like the secret strategy of the deck. Since we have so many ways of draining the table for 1 here, 2 there, 3 there, we kind of like that extra 6 mana from Belbe is meant to just keep us in business. We don't necessarily need to like attack in with all these things. So let's talk about some of the vegetables of the deck, right? You got to have some ramp. And every deck needs ramp, even though we're still doing stuff. Like we got all the extra mana with Belbe. We won't always have that accessible. We still have to play with the normal types of commander cards. Cryptolith Fragment is perfect.
Yeah.
3 generic for an artifact. It comes in tapped, but you get to tap and add a mana of any color to your mana pool. And each player loses 1 life.
Amazing.
It can flip if each player has 10 or less life, but I don't imagine that will ever happen. Just as a FYI, it does flip to Aurora of Emrakul. It's a 1/4 flying death touch creature, and whenever it attacks, each opponent loses 3 life. Again, how can you ever get there from a 40 thing set? I didn't say this either. I should have. We're assuming this is a 4-player game. We've got 3 opponents to get 6 mana, right? If you're playing 1v1, Belbe only pays you back for 2, so what's the point? Like, it's not that big a deal. But Cryptolith Fragment, you get the 6, you get the 1 now, and you get 6 later, so it just pays you a ton.
That's very cool. Here's something that has never happened on the show before, but we got to do it.
What?
This is my asthma puffer. Inhaler, I suppose you can call it. I was beginning to feel a little bit of the old asthma creeping up, so I had to do that.
Whoa.
But now that'll stave it off for another while.
Nice.
There you go. A little glimpse into old 80s life there. Okay, well, let's move on. After Cryptolith Fragment, which is really cool, and seeing that, I forgot what was on the other side of Cryptolith Fragment, by the way, because I
honestly
don't believe I've ever seen it, maybe?
No, yeah.
Maybe once in a draft. But we also have Beanstalk Giant. Of course, 6 and a green for the Giant with Star. Its power and toughness is equal to the number of lands you control. But also, this has a little adventure on there. Fertile Footsteps, 2 and a green. Search your library for basic land card, put into the battlefield, then shuffle your library. This is just a classic vegetable. I actually just recently picked up a bunch of these because this card is really good. Like,
Yes,
you know what I mean? Like, like it's close to being as good as Rampant Growth because you don't put it onto the battlefield tapped. So if you have some way of using that mana, which I know isn't like the case all the time, but if you do, so like later in the game, it's actually like, it actually is just Rampant Growth. And then obviously this just sits there waiting to be cast for 7 mana to be this giant creature. And there's a ton of strategies that love having a giant creature, whether it's just like very straightforward, like trampling over and attacking and beat down, or if it's some kind of crazy like sacrifice thing, or I don't know, there's all kinds of reasons that you would basically want 2 cards in one. And even like, I don't think we talk enough about Beanstalk Giant and how it's like kind of a commander staple.
Yeah,
at least
I
it
think
should
that's
be.
Fair.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, and then the front side, 6 and a green. Like 6 is how much mana Belbe pays us back. So if we got an extra green floating around, we can just drop the Beanstalk Giant out. Granted, on turn 3, this is a very tiny giant.
Yeah, it's not
but
huge then.
It's only going to grow. Like, we don't have to do it then. This is something we can cash in when we're ready.
Yeah, and exactly like you said, like even later in the game when it does make sense to have like an 8, if you get 8 or 10 lands or something, still dropping it for 1 is pretty sweet if you have any other plays, right?
Yeah.
So not bad.
And then one more vegetable, right? You got to have, so this is ramp and card draw. It's Dreamstone Hedron, 6 generic, aka free for Belbe, for an artifact that taps for 3 colorless, so we can use this to power out other cards, but also 3 in a tap, sacrifice Dreamstone Hedron, draw 3 cards. We run the whole gamut of these because so often in this deck, as I was testing it, you end up to the points where like, I've got too much mana. So I guess I'll just cash in this Dreamstone Hedron, loop it back, get some more stuff going on. Belbe is very powerful, and this is the foundation of the deck, and I think I'm ready to move us into the segment of Meat Moves.
Working on a
Meat Moves. We're just going to take a second to handle a little bit of business. And the main point is, thanks for watching. If you want to see more of our comedic takes and offbeat decks, consider subscribing to our channel and hitting that bell to make sure you don't miss anything. And if you're loving our stuff and want to support further, the best way is to head over to patreon.com/commandersbrew. Find out how our generous patrons keep our show growing and how you can get in on the brewing action too through our Discord. Or, if you'd rather, just hang out and play some games with like-minded Commander players. Now, let's get back to those any-to-me moves. Let's talk about the first, just in general, where we want to talk about some of the free spells Belbe can give us after we do the thing. So one of the best is Steel Hellkite. It's a 6 mana, 6 colorless artifact creature dragon, 5/5 flying, so free for Belbe. But the key is Steel Hellkite also is a mana sink. So even after let's say the following turn, we've cast Hellkite on turn 3 with Belbe, then we attack. Well, we can pay 2 to give Steel Hellkite +1/+0 until end of turn, but we don't have a ton of mana yet. But the other ability is X. Destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost X, whose controller was dealt combat damage by Steel Hellkite this turn. Activate only once each turn. So, if you can't stop it, it's like, cool, I'm going to attack you with this. I've already done Belbe's thing. I've got 6 extra mana. I can kill all your 6 drops if you have that many of them. You probably don't. But that's one option that I have.
Steel Hellkite definitely gets the Audric Award for card. I think like the ratio of how good it is to how often I forget about it is the most off,
Yes.
Yes. Steel Hellkite is, and it's not an expensive card or anything like that. There's no reason I should be forgetting about this card. It's a 6 mana 5/5 dragon with 2 extremely relevant abilities. The second one specifically very relevant. Always comes to mind is the token killing ability of it, which is incredible.
Oh yeah.
Just pay 0 and kill all their tokens that don't have a CMC, obviously. But like Steel Hellkite's incredible, man. It's a very, very good, very useful to utility creature. It's also just a good beater. Like, I don't know, man. I like I said, I forget about this card way too often, and thank you for bringing it back into my
You're welcome.
my mind
You're
again.
welcome. I'm glad I could be of service.
Yeah. Another free spell to help us with Belbe's mana to cast to get something out there is Thopter Assembly. 6 mana, 5/5 flying Thopter. It's an artifact creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control no Thopters other than Thopter Assembly, you return Thopter Assembly to its owner's hand and create 5/1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. Should be noted, I think, that when we look at Belbe's ability, we don't have to deal the damage through one of these direct damage spells or just having this thing that, like, it can just be combat, right?
Yeah.
So Thopter Assembly is this really great thing where you can, cast it with Belbe's ability for 6, and then next upkeep it's going to bounce and you get all these other Thopters, and if you maybe someone takes care of your repeatable thing, maybe someone does something else, well then you've got a bunch of Thopters around which are going to be able to get through if you have 6 of them. You're going to be able to generate mana that way as well, so it's really great.
And Thopter Assembly is coming right back down for free.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. So Thopter Assembly, just great. Its own little engine here, especially with Belbe.
One of my favorite turn 3 plays in this deck is Staff of Nin.
Yeah.
6 generic for an artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card, and you can tap it to deal 1 damage to any target. You can take out a 1 toughness creature, or just get an extra hit in on someone for Belbe in case you can't hit everybody.
Yeah, if you can't hit everyone, Staff of Nin just reads like 6 mana or 0 mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card, tap, deal 1 damage to any target, gain 2 colorless mana.
Basically,
what?
this is better than this feels better than turn 1 Sol Ring in my opinion. Turn 3 Staff of Nin feels amazing.
Unreal, so good. So then we got a couple here that are like almost free, right? Because these are I love the theme of the 6-drop artifact tribal. But, we got other stuff we can do. One of the great things is Skeletal Worm. 7 in a black for a 7/6 that is also just able to be regenerated. You pay black and regenerate it. Regenerating creatures are underrated in Commander, and I love the idea that to play, a skeletal worm for, I don't know, 2 mana. This is a 2 mana 7/6.
Yeah.
Not
that
bad.
Regenerates.
Right.
I like it. Another almost free artifact is Colossus of Akros. 8 mana for a 10/10 defender and indestructible. And you can pay 10 to Monstrosity Tenet, which means put 10 counters on it so it becomes a 20/20. And as long as it's monstrous, it has trample and can attack as though it didn't have defender. This creature will end games if you let it. And it costs us 2 extra to cast it the first time. And if we're ever sitting around and be like, you know what? Belbe just made me 6 mana. I'm going to invest an extra 4, maybe 3 from that Dreamstone Hedron and a couple more. Now this is monstrous. And now I've got a 20/20 indestructible trample. Great.
Let me tell you, it's easy to underrate. It's easy to look at a card that costs 8 mana and has a monstrous ability of 10 and be like, that's too much mana, right? It's too, I'm not going to play this card, or it's not very good. And from that point of view, you're absolutely correct, right? 10 mana is so much. It's going to take so long, blah, blah, blah. Well, when the player can get it out on turn, 4, 5?
Yes, I think 4 is possible. Because
and monstrous it the next turn?
Yeah.
It's a real threat. It's a big-time threat. It's indestructible just in general, right? It doesn't gain indestructible. It just has that. So this thing does just sit there when someone ramps into it. And that's the thing. They always ramp into it. There's no not ramping into Colossus of Akros, right? So it's ramped into every time. And then, they're going to monstrosity it. I've seen this card get played, and I've seen the entire table, myself included, scoff and just go, whatever. I remember this card from draft. It sucks, right? And then they monstrous it, and it's a 20/20, and you're like, I have 24 life. I can't block. I can't do anything to this thing.
This thing tramples.
Another reason why bounce and tapping things is kind of underrated in Commander.
Yeah.
This is a great one too. Worldbreaker, 6 and a green for the 5/7. This one has the void. When you cast Worldbreaker, you exile target artifact, enchantment, or land. It also has reach randomly, and you can pay 2 and a colorless, specifically a colorless, to sacrifice a land and return Worldbreaker from your graveyard to your hand. So really great recursion ability there. We're generating that colorless with Belbe, which is awesome, because otherwise that's like a third color in your deck. So it's really great that she does that. This is a acidic slime essentially, but it's exiles, which is even better. And in this deck, it costs a single green.
Yeah, and then just to paint the picture, so if there's a future turn, maybe someone has dealt with your Worldbreaker, if we get that 6 mana surplus, 3 of it goes to returning this to our hand, and then 3 of it goes towards the casting. That's really just an additional 4 mana to exile another thing and get your 5/7 back all at once.
Incredible.
Pretty good.
Very good.
So we've got lots of big artifacts, lots of cheaty things, lots of little things. There's not a lot of middle of the curve for this deck. It's the top and the bottom.
Which makes sense because you're getting the mana so quickly,
Yeah. One of the things that is in the middle, and truly is the secret commander of this deck. I mean, I didn't build around it with that intention, but this if you can get Glissa the Trader out, black, green, legendary zombie elf, 3/3, first strike and death touch. First strike and death touch already means you're probably getting through in combat on almost anybody, unless you have a ton of tokens and they don't mind throwing one away. So that's great. But here's the key. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you may return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. All of those cheaty artifacts that cost 6, that Dreamstone Hedron, after I cracked it and got paid in cards, that's coming back to my hand. Of course, we got little dinky artifacts up top, like little treasure maps and things like that just kind of help us ramp and fix, then go to the graveyard so that Glissa can get those back as well. We could just dump a bunch of those at once if they've all come back to our hand. Glissa
very fun.
Glissa amps this deck up to an 11.
I love it. She's got to be the only creature ever printed that has first strike and death touch natively, right?
I don't know.
It's got to be certainly one of the only, if not the only. I just feel like they never knowingly put that on the same card. I will say this: I love this little combo that we have, which is a classic combo, really.
Yeah.
Something like Glissa, where we're bringing back artifacts from the graveyard, and oh man, Mindslaver.
Yeah.
This is, you know, I mean, I know you said you wanted to dip your toe into the CEDH scene, but I don't know.
Too slow. This is too slow for CD.
Much too slow. But, you know, Mindslaver in this deck, I mean, 6 mana. It's one of the 6 mana artifacts. Legendary artifact. Pay 4, tap it, sacrifice Mindslaver. You control target player during that player's next turn. We all know this card. The range on this card is you can totally ruin a player to do absolutely nothing to them, like cost them a land drop, even if that sometimes. But the real power here is that with Glissa, we can just be getting this card back over and over again. We can you can lock people out with this card, especially since you're controlling someone on their turn and you're kind of deciding if their creatures die, essentially, right? Like you're attacking things into things that are going to die, all that kind of stuff. So you can really get pretty mean with Mindslaver. By the way, not at all a card you should ever play on spell table / your online games, on your online paper games. Just don't. You can't. I realized I just realized the other day I did play a deck with a Mindslaver in it, and I forgot about it.
You know what I've never seen? You know those little puzzle games where they're like, can you survive one turn and kill your opponent with what's on the board?
Yeah.
For these like fabricated things. I've never seen one where it's just like, you've just Mindslavered this opponent. Can you make them kill themselves right this turn?
That's fun.
Like with like crazy spells and like abilities.
I'm sure those exist. I'm sure someone's made one of those with Mindslaver. They must have.
They must have. They're very clever.
Very fun.
This is one from Commander Legends, and it's just perfect for this deck. It's Ingenuity Engine. Obviously, it's on the same set. I'm sure this is part of it. But it's a 7-mana artifact with Cascade that doesn't do a whole lot. So that Cascade is huge, because, I mean, when you think of that we're basically paying 1 mana for this, I'm happy to cascade into a 6 or lower drop from my 1 mana spell.
Yeah.
But the ability on Ingenuity Engine is 1 tap, sack an artifact, return an artifact you control to its owner's hand. So this is, like, we can return itself to our hand. So, like, think about this. We've got, like, we can cast it for 1, and then it can cascade into something. And then later on, we can be like, I got tons of mana. I can put it back in my hand, cascade it again, put something else back in our hand. Maybe if we want to like recur another artifact for some reason.
So
it's an instant speed ability, so we can save an artifact from destruction if someone points a spell at it.
Yeah. That is a cool combo, though. Next here we have Altar of Shadows. I remember this card, man. I went nuts for this card when I first saw it. Altar Shadows is 7 generic for an artifact. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add black for each charge counter on Altar of Shadows. And then 7 and tap, destroy target creature, then put a charge counter on Altar of Shadows. So Altar of Shadows, obviously with Belbe, is only going to cost us 1 real mana. And if you can use her mana again to activate that ability, which, you know, it's expensive, but if you can do it and get a creature and you can get a counter on this thing, then all of a sudden, like with Belbe, it pays for itself. Then all of a sudden it's, you know, you keep doing it and it just becomes less and less and less. And that's the deal with Altar of Shadows. So there are certain decks where this card is just, I think, super powerful. You know, I think it's like busted because of the mana it's making. And then the fact that you can reinvest it in itself to kill stuff is like very powerful. It's another one of these. It's its own engine. Yeah,
pretty neat. And then the last card I want to talk about in this section of the show, Triskadicaphobia, 3 and a black for an enchantment. We're doing a lot of little draining on people. We're chipping away at the life totals. I mean, I didn't talk about them, but we have all the eligible extort creatures too, as a way to like spend an extra mana to make this happen. But Triskadicaphobia says at the beginning of your upkeep, choose 1. Each player with exactly 13 life loses the game, then each player gains a life. Or Each player with exactly 13 loses the game. Then each player loses a life. We're going to pick the loses a life one, unless it somehow brings us down to 13. Like, unless that would, like,
unless
make
it
us
kills
die.
you.
Yeah, you can't be at 13, or this could kill you too. But we might be able to kill an opponent with it. That's a bonus, but it's really in for once we land it, it's a free activation for Belbe every turn, right? It just happens. We can just make sure it happens. And the neat thing is, Belbe doesn't have to be on the battlefield during your upkeep. This trigger can happen, then Belbe can enter during my first main phase, and Belbe's around and says like, hey, did this happen? It did. Here's your mana. So
awesome.
Belbe didn't have to see it happen, but she just has to, the game keeps track.
Very good to note, but also not hard or anything, but it's like sometimes when you're playing with someone who's just like not familiar with how that works, explaining that to them feels like, I'm not cheating, I swear.
Right.
You know,
right,
it's like
right.
the way it's worded, it's how it works. You know, I've seen that happen before where it's like, it's okay. I promise.
Trust me, this works.
Yeah. It's a very trust me, this works move. I like this inclusion though. I mean, very good. It works with everything that's going on here.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the helpers who helped me figure out some of these cards. What a great team there on the Discord. Find out how to get involved through patreon.com/commandersbrew. But I definitely want to shout out Papa Dio, Gee Pizza, Chiefy, Dylan PH, Nerds Flow, Jamon, Micah Eternities Crafter, Brave Sir Robin, Matthew Holst, Dunking Dutchman, Loki Dragon 87, and Neomaxis coming in near the buzzer, always bringing the spice. I got a card, a Neomaxis suggestion coming up soon.
The Dunking Dutchman, Rick Smits. That's very impressive that we have former NBA All-Star Rick Smits in our midst, in our Discord playing. It's really great. And like, you're not fooling anyone by using your very popular nickname, Rick Smits. Like, we know you're the Dunking Dutchman. We know you played for the Indiana Pacers. You know, we know it's you. So thank you for being here, and thanks for donating to the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we do.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but we just did the Discord helpers section of the show, which I believe then means that it's time for the budget report. Right on. Okay, well, let's take a look at this one. This one looks like it's quite reasonable, I'd say.
Oh my goodness, it's very cheap. Like, big expensive artifacts don't usually go for a lot because they're a little bit too slow on average, but not in this deck. And a lot of those tiny one-shot do a damage thing, those don't have enough impact on their own to matter either. It just so happens that Belbe is the perfect convergence. So, like, we love all of those categories of cards.
I know, I love it.
Yeah, so the mid TCG player mid comes in around 83, which is like, okay, that's pretty good. But the low is like $31.
Wow.
It's like, that's dirt cheap for a commander deck. Like,
that's
let's
very
do it.
cheap. $31.
Yeah, and I'm going to highlight 3 kind of expensive cards. They're all cuttable. I'll just tell, like, we could replace them with other things, no problem. First one's Planar Bridge. That's a $7 card. It's a 6-mana artifact or free for Belbe, and the activated ability for 8 and tap, search your library for a permanent, put it onto the battlefield. It's amazing, and Belbe can do all this for very cheap, and it's very good, but I don't need that for $7. I can just have fun with my Steel Hellkites and other things. Like, I'm happy. If you want budget, this is an easy cut.
Yeah, this card is obviously powerful, but it's not one of those cards that really excites me, you know? It's even when it first came out, it's like, yeah, obviously, like, power level alone can be exciting, but the fact that it's just like, go get something put on the battlefield is like, okay. Sure. Yeah. I guess that ability is very good. Yeah. Next is Rishkar's Expertise. I'm going to do this because it bothers me. There we go. Rishkar's Expertise. 4 green. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. You may cast a card with converted mana cost 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. This card creeping up to $6.50 at this point. $6.50 for this guy. Very good card, and like truly a green staple these days. One of the best ways to draw in green, so I'm not surprised to see it get up to that. But I mean, this we're in green and black here, so there's a lot of other ways to draw cards. Black is second, probably, right, in like drawing cards, and green's third. So there's a lot of ways to draw cards. I don't think you need to drop the 650 on this if you don't want to.
Although we'll often draw 5 or 6 off of it because we'll have big power creatures. Sometimes 10, maybe 20 if like Colossus is out.
Yikes.
Like as I said, there's not a lot of mid for this deck. So playing a free 5 or less drop, like we picked 6 mana artifacts on purpose. So really it was like, what are we going to hit smallpox off of it? Like there's not a lot of like high profile less than 6 drops that we would love to get. So I kind of feel like that you're kind of whiffing on that also. So at that point, absolutely right. Run like one of those draw for every creature or just some black draw a bunch of cards. I don't know.
Interesting.
Don't need it.
Yep.
And then this one, I mean, when you're talking 6 mana artifacts, you can't ignore Caged Sun. It's one of the more popular ones. It's a 6 mana artifact. When it enters, you choose a color. All your creatures of that color get +1/+1. And whenever a land gives you 1 or more mana of the chosen color, you get an additional mana. It's great, but we're a 2-color deck. And you really do notice it where you're like, oh, which is it? I'm 3 and 3. Which one do I want to double? My creatures are more black, so I guess I'll pick black. But I don't know. It's like this is not the deck it shines in. So save your $6. Cut that too.
Makes sense, right? Like this shines in a monocolor deck, obviously, but it'd be nice to get it for free, but it's not essential. And doing all that brings us down to like 20. What is this? 25?
I just estimated, but like if you just cut these 3 cards, the low of this deck has to be around $25.
Yeah, I mean, just regular price alone, we're talking about almost $20.
Yeah.
Like basically.
Yeah, so it brings the regular down to like close to 50.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's probably pretty fair to say.
I mean, I didn't give you a tab for this, but like obviously if you were doing with no budget, we'd probably do like Blightsteel Colossus. Like I think something like that. That seems like an easy.
Yeah, any of the big, colorless, expensive things. You can do some Eldrazi, I'm sure, in there as well, right? Get an Emrakul going, or a
sure.
What's it called? What's the big one that the 20 cards? That's Ulamog, right?
New Ulamog,
yeah.
10. That one's 10.
Yeah.
Doable. Those are doable in this deck. So sure, run them if you want.
Like I'm sure there's one thing that I is so let me just pull up Belbe here. At the beginning of each player's post-combat main phase, that player adds. So can we copy this triggered ability?
Oh, yeah, we could.
And even double our mana based on that. Like if you get a Stronic Resonator out there.
Yeah.
The Stronic Resonator's like activation is basically free in that you're getting that mana right back, right? So do that and all of a sudden you're making 12. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
This is a fun deck. This is a lot of fun.
I think so. There's only one weakness. I mean, every deck has a few weaknesses, but I mean, like, just so you know, like, if you remove Belbe before the second main phase, you don't get that mana. So, like, you've cast your Smallpox, and you're counting on that 6 mana, and then it's like, I'll destroy Belbe before you're done combat. It's like, okay.
So, protect Belbe.
Protect Belbe, yes. And I suspect that it won't take long before Belbe becomes sort of a kill on sight, because getting that much mana is too good.
She's only 2. That's the other thing.
She costs 2. That's what I'm saying. She comes out on 2, and then on turn 3, you play any 1 mana spell or even a 2 mana spell, and then your 6-drop artifact comes down on turn 3. No soul rings allowed.
That's very powerful. It seems very good.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of thing that leads to, again, if you build your deck, the way that we like to do it, it leads to just extra fun plays. It leads to drawing a bunch of cards and playing big silly things and playing like Colossus of Akros and things like that. So
yeah,
I think that's like a really fun way to approach it. And going 6 mana artifact tribal is a great deck.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Well, that's the budget report, and I do believe that we have our invitations to the latest and greatest Audric Awards.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to put on my tuxedo.
Let's head over right now.
Okay.
All right, John. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here, everyone. Welcome to the Audric Awards. Belbe herself is here. Hello, Belbe. Looking good. You're gonna have to keep those giant statues outside. We have our own here. Those are not. Can't bring those in. Sorry, they're blocking the view of everyone behind you.
And hello to Joel and Ethan Cohen, the Cohen brothers. Hello to you.
Filmmakers. Very good. Yes, very good. Glad to see. Hey, you made one of my favorite movies of all time, Fargo. So, very good. I'm glad you made it to these very real awards.
Yes, thank you.
Sean, what are we doing here today? What's the big award here?
We are presenting. It is an honor and a privilege to present the award for Best George Costanza Hairdo, and that award goes to Plague Spitter. Plague Spitter. 2 and a black, 2/2 horror, with a giant weevil body, tiny legs, and George Costanza little ring of hair. At the beginning of your upkeep, Plague Spitter deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. When Plague Spitter is put into a graveyard from play, when it dies, it deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. Plague Spitter.
Plague Spitter looks like after Elaine had ripped the toupee off of George's head and his hair in the back was going all nuts in the back.
Yes.
Here's what I'm doing with it. So she's like, I hate this thing, and here's what I'm doing with it. And then she throws it out the window.
Yeah.
Great scene. Pretend that was shown on the big screen behind us here at the Audric Awards, obviously. Wonderful night. What an evening. What a magical night.
Thanks for staying to the end, everybody.
Yes, we know it's been a long Audric Awards. You'll rejoin your local news coverage in the middle of it. Thank you very much for all of us here. And everyone, let's have a great 2021 going forward here. Thank you very much. Well, I'll see everyone later. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Oh my God, my hand is coming out of my shoulder.
Thanks for watching. If you love what we're doing, consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/commandersbrew.
And if you want to get any of the cards from our deck list, go to our TCG Player affiliate link below.
That helps us out too, and for a free way to help us out, consider sharing the show with some friends. Like and subscribe, add a comment or two.
See you later.
Bye.